Sorry, I thought I heard my name.
You're live. Good morning.
We're live. Good morning. How
I didn't do my homework.
you didn't do your homework?
Well, I kind of did, but I kind of didn't. My week's been nuts. That's why. I figure I
Hey,
could just turn my week into a headline.
unleash yourself, unleash your mind. Um,
No, I think my husband's already in the other room because I already did that today.
it's all right. It's okay, buddy. It's okay. Send me a WhatsApp. I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued by your shirt. It's six
Oh gosh.
sixteen Latino Scholars Day. Okay, cool.
Right. So I just traveled with Christy Culp from Loyola Marymount,
Love it.
which, as you know, I went to twice. And she went into um her drawers, which are plentiful. And she was looking at all the cool t-shirts they make. They have really cool t-shirt contests and t-shirts for like every department. Like some
So
schools just really go out
was
of
this the year of
control.
2016?
Yeah. And so she saved a whole bunch of stuff for me and she brought them down.
Love it.
And I'll represent, I mean, I have nothing else in my closet anymore. People will tell you, like they laugh, like do you have other colleges in your closet? I really don't.
No.
I'll accept anything, I'll wear anything, right? But Christy was here last and she brought the most, and I gotta put on a good show.
Hey, everybody listening, universities, she'll wear your stuff all over Porto Alegre in Brazil. She said it. She just said it now.
Actually, foreign countries, these make for great conversations, right? Because
100%.
people recognize that it's a college. They may not be sure what it stands for or where it is, but it's an excellent conversational starter.
It's a way to drum up independent business, yeah?
Yeah, that definitely helps.
Yeah, it doesn't
Definitely
hurt.
helps.
Doesn't hurt. I actually, as soon as you said that, I looked down to see what socks I put on. I was choosing between two socks today, and it was almost the University of Santa Clara socks. So
Oh, nice. Yeah. Why not wear one of each? I mean, do you choose? Nobody's sitting from here below. You could wear two different socks.
yeah, but then if I wash them at two different times, then they sit in the single sock bin. I don't want this.
Oh, you have a, do you have a single sock bin?
No, we have a bin. We have a bin of all socks. When they come out of the dryer,
Hmm.
t-shirts, everything's folded on the three boys piles on top of the dryer, and then
Okay.
Noel and I have a pile. But socks, because the two younger ones have the same size feet, and West and I share socks all the time.
Okay.
So all socks go into a bin. And once that bin gets full, we dump them on the ground and we sort and compile them.
Does having a sock bin reduce the chances of the sock monster, making it so you're missing a sock?
I think so.
Oh, that's really good.
A,
That might not be a bad college tip, right?
a sock bin. Maybe
Because kids need to know, right? They have to do their own laundry. This might be a headline. Headline. When you go to college,
you have to do
you
your own
have
laundry.
to do your laundry.
There's some ways around it, but yeah, typically you have to do your laundry.
What should I ask?
Well, Noelle gives me a hard time about it. So I don't know that I want it to be so public as you two.
Okay. I'll ask you later
Okay.
because
I mean,
I'm curious. I'm
I probably
curious about
also,
this workaround.
I probably also don't mind, but I do have a headline here with you.
Okay.
And
Lay it on me.
well, I am going to change my background
Okay. This is
to an
getting
image,
serious.
to an image.
So either my brain cells are going to be really ready for this because I've been up since 6 working, or they're already gone for the day. Oh,
Okay, so
geez.
I'm gonna remove myself. I want you to.
You want me to read that image?
Can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can still hear
Okay.
you. Your
Okay.
mic didn't disappear with you. All right, here come the glasses. Just a second. Hold, please.
All
Okay,
right.
number of students in 2015, 2016, 3,000, dropping to dropping more to almost half, right? Am I reading that correctly in 22, 23?
Yeah, you're reading that correctly. So,
So I
so the
have to put
question,
together
the
the
question,
variables here, right?
the question I have here is yes, number of students is pretty understandable. I'd like you to guess from which country to which country.
Oh boy.
Number of students from which country that was sending nearly 3,000 back in 2015 to which country, and now they are only sending roughly half that 1,400. 3,000 to 1,400. From which country to which
Jeez.
country?
I don't get any hints. I'm still gonna say you're sending to the US. I should check my GeoSwerve numbers because I really don't know how many thousands of international oh, it could be the UK though too.
So I'm going to give
Oh, I
you,
don't
you,
know.
you asked for a hint. I'm going to give you the three reasons this article talked about a few reasons, but a 16-year-old talked about these three reasons as to why they will be choosing a different country to go study or stay in
Okay.
their own country. Cost, safety, hate crimes.
US. Okay, that's an easy one. US.
It's an easy one to say the destination
Isn't
country
that
is the
terrible?
US.
So who was up to
Cost, safety, and
3,000?
health hate crimes. US, that's a US. Okay. That's a headline right there. Emily's response immediately.
US, yes. So US, so what country was sending 3,000 and dropped? Good Lord. Is it somebody in my region?
It is
I'm
not
gonna go,
somebody, it is not somebody in the
and it's
LATAM
not
region.
India because that's up. LATAM has been up to over 9,000 for quite a while. It's gotta be somebody maybe not as large, right? As some of these regions that I'm thinking about.
This country is not as large.
It's a country, huh?
Well, the article also is about a group of people, which in this region you could probably associate
I give
multiple.
up. I'm gonna say Canadians don't want to come down to the US anymore.
It'd be interesting to know what those numbers are. I would imagine it's a little
I would,
different.
but go tell me anyway.
All right. So additionally, with this, there was, um, well, the statement from the 16-year-old was, when I was younger, I had a more pristine, perfect idea of the US. And now I think media has played a huge role in this.
Mhm.
I think the social media, everybody having it in their pocket, things that maybe weren't as big of a deal, or because they weren't noticed, they were seen not to be as big of a deal, are now public. And so everybody's talking about it, right? So it was a perception of the country has changed a lot for them. It is the Emiratis.
Oh, interesting. That actually makes a lot of sense.
It makes a lot of sense. The
Have you
Emiratis,
been there? Have you been over there?
I've only ever flown through the airport. But I would go, I would live, I would
You
raise
want
my
to talk
family.
about places that feel safe when you
Oh,
walk outside of the airport? Like that's a destination.
it's a
Very
huge,
few kids. Every once in a while, I'll get some kids to go over to like the Qatar Doha area and do one of the education city institutions.
I
But
think
that region in general, I think that's untapped. Like I think there's so much going on there that more people need to know about.
I've never been, as I've said, but I've been trying to send students to that area ever since IIE was representing the new New York University,
Oh gosh,
Abu
Abu
Dhabi.
Dhabi.
So
Oh
they
yeah.
came to Singapore, and it was 2007, 2008, 2009, one of those years. I'm not sure. I think it was 2009, and they came because they were the representative. And I was like, yeah, this makes all the sense in the world. You get New York University, but you get to move from Singapore to Abu Dhabi, but you
Mhm.
still get the American degree from a pristine, and it's the honors college side of NYU. It made all the sense in the world to me because Singapore, talk about a country where you feel safe as well, right? But
Well, so I find I find that whole thing fascinating because it reminds me of something that I heard about the Emirati region from a girlfriend that actually has worked there, has worked at one of the international schools for a very long time. And it was kind of about safety and self-respect and respecting community. So it doesn't surprise me now that as a collaborative or hive mind, that the decision to stay away from the US for these three reasons has kind of spread. She told me that it was the one place in the world where if you left your cell phone on a park bench, not only would it still be there when you came back the next day to get it, but if it was running out of batteries, somebody would have charged it for you and put it back. And to me, this idea that people are saying no to the US because of all of these things that are showing a lack of values in many ways, just highlights it even more. Well, and I could go on for days talking about the education opportunities over in that area too. Maybe that's something that we need to do. That's a headline of itself.
that's probably a Norms Unleashed, just finding somebody over there.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
You should try to do a fly-in. I missed the Abu Dhabi fly-ins. They do great fly-ins for counselors. So NYU Abu Dhabi does it. I don't know how to get on that list anymore, but 3 times I missed it.
yeah.
Once because I was pregnant, the second time because I had a little one, and the third time I just couldn't make it with the timing. Did a long flight from Brazil, but I did make it to Northwestern Qatar. Do you know they have 5-star hotel type dormitories? 5 stars, 5-star. Like, I am an adult and have saved my money to go on travels and still have not been able to stay in such luxury. It's absurd.
Yeah, well,
people are nice. People are nice.
It would not take much for me to make a move to that region of the world.
Well,
I mean,
call up Fred Silva at Northwestern, see what we can do for you.
It would take some, but it wouldn't take much. Oh man, Fred Silva and we should bring him on because I had a brainstormed idea with him one time that I think would make education very exciting.
So you're not going to give that away, are you? But you know what, though, and people should hear about this, though. It's good that we're talking about it. The kids that I've seen be most successful personally, mentally, emotionally, financially, have usually studied in places like that. And so I'm just imagining like being out of your comfort zone, but in a place where education is prioritized and so prevalent in an area, like you just can't go wrong, right? Like I've never thought about it in that sense, but it's a good place for kids that really want a geosport to go.
I would think so. I mean, you have to handle some things that maybe are a little different for you, but guess what?
For sure. But that's part of it, right? It's
part of life,
years.
and that's part of the value of geosurfing. So the article is actually really great. For a lot of reasons. It goes on and talks about the perception that young Arabs have among non-Arab nations.
Which is? So
it talks about like whether they see these countries as an enemy or an ally.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, while the U.S.'s numbers have dropped, if we look at this percentage, it's like still 60% view the U.S. as an ally.
60%. Well, that's
so it's still about
more than half.
It's still more than half.
I wonder what that would look like if you looked at other regions.
Well, they said China as an ally is like 80%.
Oh, really? Okay.
Whereas, Russia, Turkey also about 50%. So that was interesting. And then they talked about the perception of the U.S. influence still having make the most influence in the region. So while there's concerns that they have about maybe spending their educational years, they still value and see the U.S. as important in the region. So that the article continued on. And then you've already raised it from a geosurveying point of view. So this is the second part of the...
there's 2 parts?
Yeah, I'm not going to put another screen up there. But the headline was, the number of UAE students heading to the U.S. nearly halves due to safety concerns and costs.
Yeah.
We've addressed that now. The subtext, the subtitle. In the same period,
Mhm.
the number of Americans studying at the universities in the UAE has increased, as we've talked
There you
about.
go. There you go.
So,
There it is.
um, I will give you the 2015 number of US students that have studied in the UAE, and I want you to give me the number of students you think that it increased to in 2022.
Okay.
In
I have to give
2015,
you a number. Okay.
well, yeah, I mean, but I'm going to give you some, like, I'm giving you three of the four numbers that
Okay.
you,
Okay.
in
Go.
2015, there were 718 Americans studying in the UAE in 2015,
Okay.
718. In 2022, how many do you think were studying in the UAE?
Let's double that number.
So you're going 1,436.
Oh, that's brilliant. Yeah, do it.
Not quite, which means we need people to look at this. We need Fred, and we need the crew over at Northwestern, and we need the crew over at NYU elsewhere. But also, there's got to be other universities that were just not.
Well, I don't think many people know about Education City or like the foundation that runs it, what's behind it, like what the lifestyle's like there. Some people must know. I went over there
Although
and there was a shocking amount of Brazilians because there that is a hub for some of the airlines. And so a lot of the pilots ended up over in the Doha area. And so people related to the pilots started hearing about this Education City.
great place. Well, I remember the time that I flew Emirati Air.
Was that it was like a hotel in the air, right? It wouldn't
It's
feel like an airplane by any.
it's pretty nice. Um,
Oh
so I've
man.
flown Qatar Air and Singapore Air, of course, and Cathay Pacific and all of these, but Emirati at the time, they don't do it anymore, but at the time they would have the name, the country flag or the country flags of
Mhm.
the citizenship in the languages on the name tag so that everybody flying in would know who they could speak to. I think for safety concerns, when you start narrowing down name and countries, you start to give a lot of personal information away to everybody that you see. And so I think
Mhm.
for safety concerns, they've removed some of that and just kept the name. Um, but it was fabulous. It doesn't surprise me that Education City is doing well, but it's not double like you thought it was double. So we need to get
Well,
the
let's make it double. Actually, I have a kid in mind. That's so funny that you brought it up. One of my pieces of working this morning is working with a pretty fantastic pro bono kid from the African continent. And um, I've got he's on scholarship. Right? It's funny because he asked, he's like, "Can I watch your show?" Now I'm gonna send it to him. He's gonna be on it.
you're on it, my man.
But this is something, and he's hearing it for the first time. This is something that I have in mind for him because this kid has grit. You need grit really to kind of geo-swerve and make it one of those places. But um, he has that energy to him. So as we're starting his college list, I'm definitely going to have him look into that opportunity. But I want to swing this back around as we're talking about US versus going other places and student mobility. And it's a more personal question. We're talking to our kids maybe just a little bit on the fringes, some of them more directly, our children, your kids and mine, about going to school. I live in Brazil and have for 20 years. You lived abroad and came back. I'm hesitant to move back. I've told my family that.
Yeah.
And I'm also hesitant to plant seeds in my daughter who also is in that wave of, oh, it's got to be the US. The US has the best education. I'm not sure I'm on board floating that idea. I'm not sure I'm on board not knocking down that idea either. Too, I'm wary about the United States. I don't find it to be the same place that I used to live. But then again, I'm still passing through, right? I'm just a visitor when I'm there. But every single person I've talked to has said, don't come back. What do you have to say to that? Either they don't like me or no, it's not possible, is it?
Look,
Well, it could be. Could be.
if it shouldn't be possible to not like you, Emily.
Anything's possible. I
Anything's
tell ya.
possible. Um, that's I really I can really appreciate and align with the idea of I don't want to necessarily encourage, but I also don't want to knock down.
Yeah.
Um, I think that's important to be able to keep all options open for exploration, um, including the US. Um, I have three sons, as you know. The middle one, we went to like an art show the other day at the high school, and their art pieces were in the library. So we're walking through the library. They like to read. What does August do? August goes over, finds the U.S. News World Report, sees that it's about college ranking, and just opens it up and starts looking at different universities and how much they cost. He and
Did
his
you immediately give him your handout and we're like, do the work on the metrics, kid?
I told him, I said, if you can do good enough work, build me out some different ideas, some strategy, do some creatives on every universe. I can pay you, right? Like I can employ you with
Yeah.
my son to do this. He doesn't have the stick-to-itiveness to do it, although he has the creativity and the interest. He only wants to be in the United States.
Yeah, Luna seems to be aiming that way too. Of course, like Christy Culp, Aunt Christy, has just floated LMU. So now Luna's thinking she may be third generation LMU. But she hears us talk about it a lot, you know?
Yeah.
But we're coming from one reality to another. Like it's expensive to live here too. The prices are outrageously inflated here.
Um, I think in terms of the don't come back statement, I remember when I first moved overseas, we went through training. It was a really fabulous program. Every teacher in this network of schools went through pre-field orientation, going abroad.
Mhm.
You have 2 weeks. You're going to be together with all of these teachers going to these different schools around the world, and you're going to learn about
What network was this, Sammy?
the network of international Christian schools. So there is a school in Brazil,
Oh,
there's a school in Rio, an international
very
Christian
nice.
school in Rio. There's one in Suriname. I almost went to the one in Suriname. There's
Hmm.
a few others. There's like 20 around the world.
Hmm.
All small schools, predominantly serving, at least the one that I worked at in Singapore, predominantly serving like the missionary communities.
So they had a pre-orientation. So everybody that's going to these schools, wherever they may be, is all getting together in one place.
It was really cool, and they paid for you to fly down um, to Tennessee, Mississippi, to get together all the teachers. You're going to Africa, or you're going to Oceania, or you're going to the Middle East. You're going to South America. You're all getting
Nice.
together in this place, and you're learning about things that they talked a lot about TCK, right? They talked a lot about that idea, and it was there that I was like, I understand TCKs. I roomed with kids who were deemed as TCKs. This third culture kid concept by David Pollock. And I don't mind it, but Hawaii to Maine, Alaska to Florida, the United States is in and of itself so many cultures. So don't talk to me about third culture kids as just the passport country.
Hmm. Hmm.
There's cultures within one city, right? And you identify with a passport. And so I always struggled a little bit with that. But my Hawaii to Maine, Alaska to Florida, these Emirati students that are scared of, the cost, the safety, and the hate crimes, they might be surprised that if they go to a rural community in Idaho, they've never felt so loved.
Oh my gosh.
Like
We talk about this all the time. Like the heart of the United States is like in the middle. I've never had a bad experience in the middle, like between the coasts. Traveling or living, I've never had a problem in the middle.
I mean, there
Living
there
on
are
the coasts have always been harder for me.
there are problems in the middle. I mean, for sure,
Sure, everywhere.
but the
There's a
heart
different set of problems.
the heart is there. And I think when you stand out as different, people's natural inclination is I believe people's natural inclination is curiosity, not hate. Now that curiosity could turn to hate quickly. I
Hmm.
see that curiosity can also turn to acceptance and love.
Hmm.
And so but their first inclination is curiosity. We're like kids, right? We see
Mhm.
something different. We want to go up and touch it until we're told don't touch it. Well, sometimes
Right.
touch it to find out that, oh, that hurts, but it was still kind of fun.
But I think part of that, Sam, though, the way I read it, still sitting overseas, is like there are questions and ideas and comments that go along with being curious that are no longer benign. Like you're busted for asking somebody about like an accent, for example. There are certain norms and ways to frame questions and ideas, and that worries people because they know that their intentions may be good, but in the States where and other places too, I know it's not just the US, where
Yeah.
those tensions are rising, like you just don't know who you're going to set off. And that uncertainty, I think that is interpreted
Yep.
as part of a safety issue.
Yeah.
And that could be, mental, emotional safety. I think that goes right up there with that physical safety too. For me, at least it does.
I don't disagree at all. And I think that you do have to enter into situations knowing that it could not be pleasant.
Yeah. And people
It's,
don't know
it's
that going
hard.
in.
What's that?
People don't know that going in. And they don't, okay, Tiffany Knight, our partner, Tiffany Knight,
Yeah.
is in Japan. She has been for 20 years from California, a woman of color. I've listened to her as she's talked to kids from anywhere in Africa, name it. And she goes, being black in the US is not the same as being black in Africa. And here are some reasons why. And do you think you're ready for something like that? So these kinds of conversations are important to
Yeah.
have.
Yeah. I think that's the crux of the issue is being comfortable having the conversations.
How do you train counselors for that though? Okay, so you went to training. Let's go back to the training. You went to this great orientation that trained you to be a little bit, I don't know, more global minded, maybe, or be prepared or transition well when you went to your school, your first.
It was great for me because I had explored international, I'd traveled international, but I'd never lived international.
It's a different thing, isn't it?
And I had not taught for a full year on my own in my own classroom in the United States. It was hard. It was hard for
Whoa,
teachers.
you hadn't taught in the US and you like
Well,
trial by fire?
I'd done my
You've
student
done
teaching.
your field work, yeah, right. But you
I'd done
hadn't taught in a classroom, like hired, contracted in the US
no.
and like, oh,
But yeah,
wow.
my first job, I was 22 and I landed in Singapore, which is a great place to land.
It's a relatively easy landing spot if we look at other places, right?
But it's actually disappointing to me that I landed in an easy one because I had the capacity and interest to land in a more difficult spot as
I
a
like that you
22-year
said
old.
capacity and interest. Okay, two keywords to keep in mind when we're geoswerving.
Yeah. So I had the capacity, I had the interest. I was newly married, but to somebody who, Noel had lived 5 years in Indonesia growing up,
Mhm.
and we're both social studies teachers with a heart to learn. Right. So we lived local in Singapore. We lived as rough as you can live in Singapore as an expat, almost.
Okay, okay, so explain. So you went from living in the US to living in Singapore. What was rough living for you?
Well, I
And
mean,
it, right out of college, like was your dorm room clean or your frat house or wherever you live? Like that's kind of rough living too. Another headline for students: dorm rooms are not all five-star hotels in Doha.
that's true. No, I mean, rough living as an expat, like many expats. One, the school that we worked at did not pay the same as the other international schools. They didn't
Mhm.
provide the housing. They didn't provide flights home. Like
So
you're
you
on
were
you're
immersed
on
and you were on your own.
you're on a budget. And so we lived in what they call the HDBs, the Housing Development Board buildings, which are built like essentially low income housing where they in Singapore only a certain percentage of a nationality of an ethnicity could own parts of that building and they
Okay. But
rent
they
out.
speak English in Singapore,
They
right?
speak they
So
speak they speak Singlish in Singapore lah. Yeah.
so so that was not an issue, which is an issue sometimes, right? For anybody relocating. to
Yeah.
study or to work. So that was bad. So what was the next part that was kind of challenging for you?
So I guess we lived in the lower housing, which was fine. It was 1,000 square feet, 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom apartment. I mean, it was okay. But we also like only ate local.
Oh
We
yeah, food, right?
right with food. I played on 3 different soccer teams. I played on a tech league soccer team for Crocs. I played on a uh, Christian Chinese soccer team,
Oh, nice.
and I played on a Muslim Malay soccer team. And
Dang, what a mix.
the Christian Chinese soccer team was mostly like I'm 22, right? Was mostly 45, like what my age type now, right? Like 45 and above. And the Muslim Malay soccer team, I was 22, and almost everybody was like 17 to 26. So it was more
Okay.
my years. And then Noel and I, but mostly Noel, danced in a Sikh Bhangra dance troupe. She danced for the
That's
president of
cool.
Singapore.
That's so, but Noelle is cool.
She's
Everything
cool.
that you say about Noelle is cool. Like
She's cool.
I think we could do several podcasts just about Noelle.
So when I say rough, I mean, it wasn't rough, but we would land in Singapore into this setting, and we
No,
would other
but there's
teachers
no
would,
bubble. I think you mean there's no bubble for you. There's no landing bubble, right? Which is the package that most schools have.
yeah, most schools have a package that is a little bit more robust than the school I landed.
Mhm.
But
I love it.
I'm grateful for where I landed. And I would talk with our head of school, Dr. Joe Beeson, um, and he and I were like, "What?" And I led pre-field orientation a couple years later, and then I managed the growth from like people coming in. I would work with their students as the counselor, right? I would work with the students and the parents to make sure that they, throughout that first year, had benchmarks that they felt comfortable venturing out and doing new things in a new country. If you had been in the United States for a long time and you had built that comfort level, or if you had been in Australia or the UK for a long time or Canada for a long time, you built that comfort level of what education was like. When you landed in Singapore, it's still different enough. It's harmonious and tolerant, but it is diverse, right? And there is grit, but you have to find it. There's also luxury, but it's too expensive. So you can't. So you are always in this like middle ground of this is not my comfort zone. This is not my life. I miss other things, and people be like, I can't do this. I can't do this. And I talked to Joe Beeson. I was like, what if we just like you land in Singapore, we put your bags down, and we take you to the jungle of Malaysia for like a 3 day or 4 day experience where you have to really rough it, like most other
And then
parts of the
like
world.
train your brain that this is
And
coming back to the other spot is
then
just a
when you
little
come
bit
back to
something more
Singapore,
manageable.
right? When you come back to Singapore, you see it like everybody else does who's tourist and just traveling in. And so
It's interesting, isn't it? That's did that work? Did you guys do that?
we didn't do that specifically, but I did lead a few different family trips and family leadership trips to Indonesia, where it was awesome. It's my favorite place in the world, Talunas Beach. And you'd get on a boat, a ferry from Singapore to Batam, Indonesia,
Mhm.
45 minutes. And then you'd walk in a very different place than Singapore, but only like you can see it from Singapore, but it's very different. And then you walk to a very small long boat, and you take a 2.5 hour boat ride across open waters of the Riau Islands, and you land in this like stunning beachfront resort that the guys from Talunas Beach created. So I led trips. I led 14 trips there in
Look at
6 months.
you. Who knew? I don't
It
think
was
I knew that about you.
it was
No,
awesome.
but there's so much to take from that in terms of what we were talking about, just in terms of student mobility, in terms of how to counsel. There's so many different things we could talk about
Do we have
here.
time to get to how to counsel? Because I had a question
Yeah,
for
go
you.
back to it. This is our YouTube live. We could go as long as we
Oh,
want.
I suppose, yeah. Thanks, YouTube. Um, you had talked about the student who's on this show now because we've mentioned him
Yeah.
by him
Yes.
a couple times now, and that he wants to watch this. Um, What is some of the ways that you, as a cooperative counselor, so an advisor of students and their parents, to think about where to go? What is it about the student and the family? And then what is it about um, where about in that process do you say, I think this kid can geoswerve?
That's such a good question. I think part of that is right back to that word cooperative, because we all know that I dislike this independent word title handed down to me. I don't agree with it. It doesn't work internationally at all. But cooperative meaning I need eyes in places I don't have eyes uh, for this kid. And he's actually a fantastic kid. So talking to his school counselor, seeing what his teachers have written about him in narratives, all of this stuff gives me ideas, and talking to him a lot. Like, you're not just trying to geosword. This is a high achieving, low income kid who needs money. When you need money, you have to dig deep, right? You have to do the hustle. And as you're doing the hustle, you're seeing if this kid is mirroring your hustle.
Mm,
So I'm like laying stuff out, and this kid is like, I'm on it, I'm on it, I'm on it, and I'm on it. And
mm,
then are they producing, and what level are they producing at? And this is the kid that always goes above and beyond. This is a kid who I don't need to mark meetings with, because we'll mark meetings with me. This is a kid who's constantly sending updates and wanting to learn how to tell his story. It's not easy to learn to counsel like that, because you're inventing tools and you have to have a network constantly. And having a network takes time. Like, you have to let it evolve and mature, and you become the counselor becomes kind of a speaker, somebody to rely on. So if I'm saying to colleges, like, invest in this kid, or can I get a waiver for this? This is a great kid. I'm telling this kid's story. That kid's got to produce. There's got to be some veracity to what I say and do. So people are taking my word, right? So I can't mess that up. So you have to be really sure these kids have the grit. So it's coming through different points of view. It's coming through him mirroring me, mirroring my hustle. And it's coming also from me being surprised by how much this kid can handle. So there's a level of maturity to these kids that is different than other kids. And that's when my wheels really start turning. Because
mm.
I'm like, there's an investment here going on wherever this kid's gonna go. He's gonna raise the bar, and he's gonna bring everybody with him. And that's kind of like, it's almost like an internal thermometer that I have. And I
Yeah.
could probably name a few more things if I thought about it, but mirroring for me is a big one. And
Mm.
hearing it from other people is another one. Like, you can't just start going to bat for kids that really, really, really need it, and really need to geoswerve because they need it, not just because they want it, without hearing from a team. You can't geoswerve anybody, even if they have a ton of money, because you don't know if they're ready. Look at the things we talked about, like, gotta hop in on the food, gotta join 3 soccer teams. Like, you have to be willing to commit to go out there. So you cannot be somebody that's just intellectually curious. You have to be somebody that's world curious when you go. Even if you're nervous to do it, you have to have that curiosity at the forefront, right?
Yeah.
Are you writing this down? Are you taking notes?
Intellectually curious and world curious.
Yeah.
I
I
like it.
mean,
I
but
mean,
this is why
yeah,
geoswerve, that word, was born too, right? Because of conversations like this. It's like, what exactly are we talking about, and how can we put that into a term or a phrase?
yeah.
But for sure, he's going to watch this now. Maybe we can have him edit it. He wants computer science. He's a phenomenal basketball player.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he talked himself in to getting onto a team. He's now in a different country. He's been geoswerved already. That's another thing. He's geoswerved already, right? He's
Yeah.
on a scholarship at a school in another country, not his home country, and he's in an IB program, and he's making it work. Like, he knew nothing about the IB. I don't even think he knew what it was or that it existed. And so if somebody can jump through all of those hoops and make a success out of them,
Yeah.
I mean, they're just beginning.
Hmm.
So if anybody watches this and wants a great basketball player, a great IB student that has computer science, that wants a game changer, This is another way to network, right?
Hey, all you NCAA Division two schools out there that are like, oh,
Yeah, send it to me.
what's my last? I have a last roster spot. I need a team player. He may not
Oh
play me,
yeah.
but I need a team player. This kid sounds like your guy.
Oh, you like this kid. You want this kid on every team you're ever going to be on.
Yeah. No,
No, that and it's great. It's a great question. Thank you for letting me bring that. It's been on my mind too. Thank you for letting me express that.
yeah, no, I think it's important. Um, and you had said something earlier about like how you knew ready to geosurf. And I got to get back to this because that's not the very first question you ask, but
No.
it's early enough that you to build out a plan, and depending on how long you start working with these students, you have to figure it out pretty quick. But the
Mhm.
consistency that you talked about, the
That's a great way
consistency,
to put it. It's the consistency, it's being able to keep up, it's going beyond what's expected. So
yeah,
there's no real checklist for
yeah,
these types of kids. There is a checklist for kids to study abroad in general. I think it starts with, can you do your own laundry? Do you want to learn how to do your own laundry? But then when we're adding the deeper levels, depending on the kid's profile, it can switch up a little bit. There's a lot of variables there.
yeah.
That was a good conversation for Friday.
Do your laundry. Do your laundry.
I
That's the title
folded
of it.
my laundry before
I
I
just
even got on my first call today. So
I
just to
just
let
fin-
you know,
I just finished mine as well. I threw a bunch of socks into the sock bin ready to be folded and paired
you
later.
threw, yeah, into the sock, but out of everybody in this house, my 12-year-old is the best folder I have ever seen. I don't know how she does it. I watch her. I've watched my mom do it, my grandma do it, but this kid she just folds and my drawers, and she'll put them in my drawers sometimes. Isn't that nice?
That was
And I go
nice.
into like my drawers and you just open a drawer, and when something's neat, just gives me a sense of peace, right? Make your bed every day at college, kids. That's another good headline.
My oldest has that book. There's a book by a US military person
Make your
guy,
bed.
Make Your Bed. And it talked about the routine and the importance of make your bed, and then everything else can kind of work in place. You've accomplished your first task of the day. He also did a commencement speech on that. Anyway,
I would say most of my geoswervers do that. So make your bed. Maybe that is a concrete list item you can say. Are you ready to geoswerve? You make your bed,
do your laundry.
one step closer. Well, thank you for the conversation.
Absolutely.
I'll
We need according to your calculations, we need another 200 and something students, maybe 300 from America to go to the UAE.
Okay. Well,
Um,
now we know. I'll text Fred Silva and see if we can get him for our next Norms Unleashed to have this
I,
chat.
I like that idea a lot.
All right. Well, have a good weekend. I'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good.